What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and I am finally home. Finally able to get back in the garage and getting some projects done. Today's project is going to be, well, it's not in the garage. Well, the work's getting done in the garage, but the project is actually doing something about these tired builder quality kitchen cabinets. Keep watching, I'll show you what I have in mind. Alright, so I've been in this house now just over 5 years, and I figured it's time to do something about these cabinets. You know, they're the builder quality cabinets, and you know, I could spend what amounts to pretty much a buttload of money to have someone come in and, you know, maybe build new doors, reface them, whatever. But you know, they're really actually in really good shape. You know, there's no damage to any of the doors. You know, everything's still in really good shape. So what I'm going to end up doing is repainting my cabinets. So let's start tearing the drawers and doors off, and I'll show you what this entails. Note to self: make sure the camera is recording if you're doing something you want to get footage of. Yeah, that happened. Well, since my camera decided to not cooperate, and it was my camera's fault. I mean, I literally got 10 seconds of footage, so not my fault, all the camera. I thought I would take this opportunity to kind of go through the steps here, show you what different steps look like, on what it takes to be able to smooth and paint your kitchen cabinets. I mean, as you can see, I am still in the works. Right now I've got, I think, 2 coats of primer on here. I just got to do a final sand and they'll be ready for paint. But the steps for the faces is the same as the doors and the drawers. So the first step that I did was I removed the doors and the drawers, the drawer fronts. And then the first step in getting them ready is to clean them. What I used to clean my cabinets was Crud Cutter. Now I use this, there it is, along with a medium Scotch-Brite pad. And what this did was not only did it clean years of grease and grime and junk off the kitchen cabinets, it also removed some of the veneer that was previously on these cabinets. You got to get that veneer off just to give a better surface for your primer and paint to stick to. Now, what I did was on the drawer fronts here, since it's just pretty much a flat surface, I also hit these pretty aggressively. I took them down with 100 grit sandpaper on a DA sander and sanded off, I would say 95% of that veneer. Took it down to bare wood. Once I did that, again, I cleaned them off. I hit them again with the Crud Cutter just to get any dust and grime off, and got those as clean as possible. For the doors, because of the design on the door and the recessed panel, I ended up just using the Crud Cutter and the Scotch-Brite pad, and even some lighter sandpaper. Actually, no, I did use about 120 grit on the doors, also as much as I could on the flat areas, to help get as much of that veneer off the door. Just again, give it a better surface for the primer to bond to. So once you get everything cleaned and prepped, the next step, what I wanted to do, I wanted my doors to be as smooth as possible. I didn't want to see as much of the wood grain through the paint. I mean, if you like that, then you can skip this step. But for me, I wanted my doors and drawers and the cabinet faces to be as smooth as I can get them. So in order to get my doors as smooth as I could, I initially went with a wood filler product that just did not work. I won't go into which one it was. It just, when I sanded it, it kind of gummed up. And, you know, I had seen other people use the same product with great results. For me, it just didn't work. So what I ended up going with was Aqua Coat. This stuff is amazing. There's no affiliation here. I bought this. They didn't reach out to me at all. I found this on my own. This stuff is incredible. Now, you can apply this with, I ended up using like a Bondo spatula or a Bondo putty knife. That worked great. I also, you know, with gloves on, I spread it in with just my fingertips, especially like, again, along this contoured edge, along the inside of my recessed panel. There was like a raised section, like a bullnose kind of, that I just put in there with, you know, with fingertips and pressed it in pretty good. Scrape off all the extra with a Bondo knife. I even used a damp rag to wipe it down, and that got off a lot of the excess. And I ended up getting the white Aquapore, so you can see here how this has a white look to it. This actually has about 2 coats of the Aquapore. Now, I only did it on the fronts. I didn't do it on the backs. I don't really care what the back looks like. Same with the doors, and I'll show you an example of what it looks like, you know, with the surface being smooth versus without. I used 2 coats of the Aquapore. First coat, you put it on, it goes on real thin, you know, really force it down into the wood grain. A light sanding, like 220 grit, even 320, you know, 240 to 320 or so is what I ended up using just to really smooth it out. And that, I mean, you can't see it, but I mean, you can still see the wood grain, but once you paint over it, I mean, this is smooth. You can't feel any of that wood grain. Aquapore, amazing product. I highly recommend it. Again, not affiliated in any way. Just, if you're going to go this route to smooth your cabinets, go with the Aquapore. I can't stress that enough. All right, then once I got my 2 coats of Aquapore done and really smoothed out and sanded nice and smooth, I hit it with primer. Now, I'm going to be using a water-based paint, so I used a water-based primer. But I did pick up a high fill, high hide primer just to kind of, again, help to hide that wood grain. And this is what I ended up with. I don't know how well you can see that, but I mean, it is smooth. I did 1 coat of primer, and then I actually did another coat of that Aquapore wood grain, a real thin coat, just to kind of help fill in any low spots that I noticed through the primer. And then I hit it with a 2nd coat of primer. Again, I still have to prime the back just to help seal the wood. Again, this is just a drawer front. The back doesn't really matter. It's going to be up against the drawer. You're never going to see it. But yeah, so primer, another coat of wood filler, Aquapore wood grain filler, and then a 2nd coat of primer. So what that ended up doing on my doors, here you can see this is one of my doors that is only, right now it's only got 1 coat of primer. There's still some blemishes in there that I want to sand out, and I guess I'll do a 2nd coat of Aquapore on this. But I mean, even with 1 coat, it looks really good. I could probably get away with painting this, but I'm being a little more anal about it. I want it smoother. But here you can see with the back compared to, you can see that wood grain in there. So that's the look that I did not want on my kitchen cabinets. I wanted it as smooth as I could get it. So, and I did the same thing with the kitchen cabinet faces. I sanded them down, I cleaned them with a crud cutter, hit them with some sandpaper. Again, not real aggressive on the faces just because I didn't want to gouge the faces up or round any of the edges over. So I think I hit those like a 220. And then I used the Aquapore on them to get them smooth. 2 coats of Aquapore, a coat of primer, some more Aquapore, again sanded between all the coats, and another coat of Aquapore, sanded, and then a 2nd coat of primer. All right, so now everything is just about ready for paint. The product I'm going to be using is this General Finishes Milk Paint. It's a water-based. This is linen. It's not white. It's kind of like an off-white. It's not really milk paint. I mean, from what I understand, actual milk paint has to be mixed and whatever. I've seen some really good results with this stuff. So this is what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be doing 2 coats of the milk paint and then 2 to 3 coats of the General Finishes top coat. And that's just really going to help give it some durability. Again, help, make it look as smooth as possible. As far as applying the primer and the paint, I ended up just using a hand sprayer on the drawer fronts, and the doors. So I avoided any brush marks, roller marks, hopefully any runs, anything like that. I just used a cheap handheld sprayer. For the cabinet fronts, I ended up using a brush. I think I used a foam brush for part of it just to kind of see how that would look. A regular brush, either one, as long as you're careful and you can get all the brush marks out of it, you'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting these hit with the paint and the top coat, and let's see how it all turns out. So there you have it. There's one way to smooth and paint your builder grade oak kitchen cabinets. Are they perfect? No. I mean, they're 20-year-old cabinets. I think getting them perfect would be a lot to ask for. Did I make mistakes and learn along the way? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, there's probably 2 big takeaways that I can suggest. First, don't use an electric airless spray gun. They put out way too much material. I had a lot of waste, had a lot of ripples, a lot of runs that I had to deal with until I got used to it, and then I was able to kind of minimize those, but the overspray on those, it wastes a lot of material. Get yourself an HVLP spray gun, and that's kind of the second takeaway. Don't use a Harbor Freight one. I tried that right from the beginning. The thing was just garbage. I ended up getting a Husky from the big orange box store, and that thing, once I got it dialed in, I ended up using that for the final coat of the clear coat. Was amazing. So get yourself a good or decent HVLP spray gun, and everything will be so much easier. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned something, learned from my mistakes, and keep watching, because I've got other things going on in here right now that I've been doing at the same time as the painting. So that's going to be probably the next video. All right. So thanks for watching. See you later.